You ever have those nights where everything looks fine, maybe even peaceful, but something underneath refuses to let go? The lights are dim, the fan hums, your phone's face down, nothing's wrong, yet your body still stands watch. Like even in your own room, something inside doesn't quite trust you to exhale all the way. You lie there thinking you should feel safe. You've done all the things you were supposed to. Finished work, brushed your teeth, set the alarm, locked the door. The calendar's clear enough that you should be at ease, but rest doesn't come. Not really, because what you're fighting isn't noise. It's the quiet that never feels like rest. I think there are people who live like this more than others. People who can't fully relax anywhere. Not because they want control or have anxiety written across their chest like a diagnosis, but because somewhere deep in their wiring, calm is not familiar. Peace feels like an unfinished sentence. It's not dramatic. That's what makes it tricky. There's no meltdown, no outburst, no obvious collapse. It's just a constant low hum. That hum becomes the baseline of your personality. The subtle readiness for something, though you couldn't name what. You're the type who stays a little tense even while laughing. You notice the click of the lock twice before bed. You reach for your phone during the quiet part of a conversation, not because you're bored, but because silence makes you aware of the space around you in a way that feels exposed. And it's strange because on the outside, you are composed. People may even call you calm, but inside, calm feels impossible. Not for lack of trying, just because your mind never learned what safe enough sounds like. It's almost funny. The world keeps telling you to just relax like it's a muscle you can choose to unclench. But you've probably noticed that when you finally have time off, when no one needs you, when you finally could rest, that's when it's worst. That's when the mind starts pacing the cage. Psychologists sometimes talk about baseline arousal, the idea that every nervous system has a preferred level of alertness. Some people's baseline is peaceful, neutral. Others run warm, like the engine never cools down between drives. It's not about trauma in the cinematic sense. Sometimes it's just what years of vigilance do to a person. Maybe you grew up in a house where you couldn't predict who'd walk through the door. And maybe noise meant danger. Maybe quiet did. Maybe you got used to scanning for mood changes in other people before you even knew you were doing it. That habit becomes body memory. And then one day you're an adult, free on paper, but your body hasn't gotten the memo. So you sit in a cafe or on the couch or even on a vacation and wonder why peace feels like it's pressing down instead of settling in. There's a line I once read that the nervous system has no sense of time. It doesn't understand that the moment has passed, it only understands safe or not safe. So even years later, the body still listens for footsteps that no longer come, still waits for the next interruption, the next shift in tone, the next reason to wake up again. It isn't dysfunction, it's adaptation. And a body that learned how to stay alive by staying alert doesn't forget overnight. The mind keeps you half awake, even in sunlight, because somewhere deep inside, it remembers needing to stay that way. You know the kind of people I mean, the ones who seem so steady, self-sufficient, responsible. They handle everything quietly. They never cause trouble. They're the ones others rely on, but if you looked closely, you'd see the tightness behind their stillness. The places where softness should be but isn't, because they had to trade softness for survival a long time ago. They sit in rooms where laughter floats around and still feel slightly outside of it. They can't sink into the couch without feeling they should be doing something. They crave sleep, but fear the helplessness it represents. They mistake numbness for calm, mainly because feeling nothing is the closest they've ever come to rest. It's not sadness, not exactly. More like being quietly done, not I give up done. Just finished in a subtle way, like a candle that burned too long. It still flickers, but it's dim, tired of pretending it's bright. That's the state nobody talks about. Because it doesn't fit the usual categories, we have words for breakdowns, for burnout, for stress. But not for this. The place between functioning and collapsing. The space where you appear alive but feel like you've gone slightly missing. And you keep going. You do what's required, you meet expectations, nod in meetings, respond to texts, smile when necessary. You might even feel grateful sometimes. But gratitude doesn't erase the undercurrent that whispers, something's off. You might notice it most in transitions, in the moments where the world slows down. Like when you close your laptop and stare into nothing for a moment too long. Or when you walk home at dusk and the air smells like rain and asphalt. That tiny ache that rises for no reason. The one that isn't sad but isn't peaceful either. It's like your system doesn't know where to put stillness. Some people look for distraction to escape it. They fill their schedules until exhaustion becomes the only permission they know for rest. Others turn minimal, strip life down to bare routines, hoping fewer moving parts will quiet the hum. But the hum stays, because it isn't about activity, it's about safety. And safety isn't always logical. Yeah, there's a study somewhere about how the brain responds when someone finally feels secure after years of threat. At first, it mistakes calm for danger. The absence of alert signals becomes an alert itself. Like silence after sirens, it doesn't sound peaceful, it sounds suspicious. That's the strange paradox. The thing you crave is the thing your body doesn't fully trust. You learn to live around it. You curate environments that don't poke too hard at your edges. You avoid certain people, not out of dislike, but because they make your body remember. You sit next to the wall in restaurants, keep earbuds in even when no music's playing, scroll even when you're not interested, just to have noise between you and that unsayable feeling. It's not laziness, not moodiness, it's self-protection refined into habit. You've probably noticed how your mind always plans escape routes. Even in comfort, some part of you stays ready to leave. That part has good reasons. It learned too early that stillness can become vulnerability, that relaxing can invite loss. So, it keeps the guardrail up, not dramatically, just constantly. And maybe that's the hardest part. No one sees the work it takes to appear normal, the slow discipline of managing your internal chaos so the world doesn't notice, the quiet inventory you take of every room before you settle in, the way you edit your face before you speak. There's a private exhaustion in being fine all the time. Sometimes I think about how modern culture doesn't help. Everything's stimulation. Even peace is sold as performance. Meditation apps, spa retreats, aesthetic minimalism. Relaxation becomes another thing to succeed at. But you can't trick your system into safety by aesthetic alone. Candles help, sure. So does music. But those are signals, not guarantees. Real rest only comes when the body believes it's allowed. And belief isn't built overnight. It's built by small consistencies. The same way a stray animal starts trusting the hand that feeds it every morning. Slowly, suspiciously. Then one day it rests in your presence without flinching. The nervous system's not so different. It doesn't respond to logic. It responds to proof, to repetition, to time. But again, this isn't a how-to. I'm not telling you to fix it, because maybe it doesn't need fixing right now. Maybe being unable to relax is your body's way of saying it still remembers. Maybe honoring that memory is more honest than forcing relief. Yeah, because if you've lived long enough with your own vigilance, you probably know that trying to silence it only makes it louder. The harder you attempt to relax, the more you watch yourself not doing it well. And then you realize relaxation, when forced, becomes another form of control, another performance. Maybe that's why the deepest kind of rest often comes in moments you didn't plan. In the weird calm of an empty parking lot, or when you're driving late at night, headlights streaking along familiar roads. Your mind goes quiet not because you told it to, but because it ran out of reasons not to. There's safety in rhythm, tires on asphalt, waves against shore, breath against body. Predictable motion gives the mind permission to soften. People often think emotional struggle has to look loud. Tears, breakdowns, visible collapse. But the subtler kind hides in plain sight. It's the friend who cancels at the last minute and blames the weather. The coworker who never loses their temper but seems faded around the eyes. The one who's always tired, though their life looks manageable from the outside. Sometimes that tired isn't about sleep. It's the fatigue of constant monitoring. No one really congratulates you for surviving that way. Because survival that quiet doesn't qualify as struggle in most people's eyes. But it's still work. The kind that doesn't leave marks you can photograph. The kind that wears on your sense of belonging more than anything else. Every now and then, though, something or someone interrupts the pattern. Not to fix you, but to exist next to you without demanding you relax. That's rare. And maybe that's what real safety feels like. Yeah, when you don't have to perform calmness, don't have to apologize for your watchfulness. When silence doesn't feel dangerous because someone else is sharing it with you. You might not even notice it at first, but your breathing changes. Subtle, almost imperceptible. You don't sigh in relief, you just forget to hold your breath. That's the closest thing to rest some people ever get. Not release, just the brief suspension of defense. I think a lot about people who say, I can't switch off. They say it with a mix of resignation and pride, like it's a character trait. But what if that inability isn't a flaw or even identity? It's just evidence. Evidence that your mind loved you enough to stay ready all those years. That your alertness is proof of care, not failure. There's a strange tenderness in realizing that. Young to see your own tension as loyalty, to the child you were, to the moments you couldn't control, to every time calm turned out to be a lie. This version of you learned to listen for danger because danger used to be the only thing that made sense. And now, even in peace, you listen, not out of distrust, but habit. That's what adaptation looks like. It keeps doing what worked, long after it's needed. And there's something deeply human about that. We adapt too well sometimes. We forget to update the code. But maybe awareness is enough. Maybe naming it without judgment is the first rest you've had in a while. Saying quietly to yourself, I'm safe, but my body doesn't believe me yet. That sentence doesn't fix anything, but it tells the truth. And truth, in its own way, is restful. You start to notice how many moments hold this silent tension. And the way you laugh half a second late. The way your shoulders stay lifted. The way your mind keeps checking the edges of the scene. Each time you catch it, don't scold it. Just notice it like you would a skittish pet, because that's really all it is, your instincts, still loyal. Over time, maybe the loyalty softens. The system learns bit by bit that quiet doesn't have to mean waiting for something bad. That stillness can just be stillness. That your own company isn't a threat, and until it fully learns, you live in the in-between. The half-resting, half-ready state. A strange kind of limbo that every cell in your body recognizes but doesn't know how to leave. You try to fill it with meaning, or work, or noise, but nothing fits. Because what you actually crave isn't distraction, it's permission. Permission to not defend yourself anymore, to not anticipate every shift in tone or plan for every outcome, to not prove you're okay, just be. It sounds simple, but to people who've never truly felt safe, peace is a foreign language. And you don't start speaking fluently overnight. You stammer, you translate, you misunderstand silence at first, you might even panic in it. But with repetition, it starts to sound familiar. There's a small grace in reaching this understanding. You stop treating your inability to relax as a problem to solve. You stop wondering why others can rest so easily. You just know that your body keeps certain memories closer, and instead of resenting that, you start to respect it. You start to realize relaxation isn't a state to reach, but a relationship to rebuild. With your own safety, your own presence, your own sense of enough. Sometimes, the work is just staying still long enough to feel the discomfort without running. That's the paradox. The stillness you keep avoiding might be the exact place you finally start to heal, not through effort, but through allowance. By letting your vigilance see that nothing happens when you lower the guard, even a little. Some people think peace feels like bliss, but sometimes peace feels strange, alien, sobering, like standing in a room that used to smell like smoke and realizing it doesn't anymore. The absence of danger feels wrong at first, but that's how every safety starts, with dissonance. So when you can't relax, when you feel wrong for not being able to rest, maybe remember that nothing's defective here. You're just hearing old alarms that haven't realized the fire's out. They're still ringing, because they think they're keeping you alive. Let them ring. You don't have to rip the wiring out. Just notice the sound fading as you stop fighting it. The silence that follows isn't peace exactly, it's quieter than that. It's the sound of your body considering, maybe for the first time, that it could belong to this moment without needing to defend it. Because somewhere between vigilance and surrender, there's something gentler waiting. Not happiness, not relaxation, just the kind of okay that doesn't need to prove itself. And maybe that's enough for now. If you've ever felt this quiet fatigue that isn't sadness, this uneasy peace, you're not strange for it. You're just someone whose body refuses to forget what it once took to stay alive. There's honesty in that, depth even. And maybe tonight, as you listen, you might not fully relax. You might still check the corners, still track every sound. But if you can notice that part of you doing its job and thank it just for a second, that might be the smallest form of rest. The kind that doesn't announce itself. The kind you don't chase, only catch by accident. The kind that feels almost like recognition. You've been ready for so long. Maybe now, just for a breath, you can be here.